Yo, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again with another interesting Jay SLATER video. I hope every single one of you are doing well. And there are a few things that I want to bring to your attention, a few things that don't make any sense. You know, I want to give you some perspective and once again connect dots to help you understand the reasons as to why I believe Jay did not fall off that mountain. Was Jay even consciously in the mountains? That's something that we still need to understand at this moment in time. Because as we know, one thing that Dr. Richard Shepard highlighted is that he could not exclude Jay being pushed. Although he said there was no restraint, no assault prior to him falling, he couldn't exclude the push. Others have also made good points in suggesting that Jay didn't necessarily need to be assaulted or manhandled or restrained. You can simply have someone compliant with just a gun. You don't even know if Jay was consciously alive when he was in the back of the car, if he was in the back of that car. Remember, when Jay leaves the NRG festival, we don't see Jay. Everything that people have been made to believe is Jay. You don't see Jay in any of that footage. Whether it's Jay in the back of the car and Ayub driving, whether it's Jay with a blanket video. Jay in the back of the car video doesn't even look like Jay. But what we do know is we've got Ayub taking a picture of whoever that person is. So I'm not too sure why the accident group or anyone else feel like they can stand up and talk with chest, because that evidence is there. It's a fact. It ain't going anywhere. All we know, it could be getting prepped for the next inquest. There was 2 videos that Duncan Smith done recently, and I would suggest you checking both of those videos out. One of them was about the 50-50 chances that Jay had in all the different scenarios that he was more or less in. Every single scenario he found himself in was a 50-50, and out of however many scenarios Jay found himself in on that day, and I think there was over 10, in every single one he made the wrong decision. The way Duncan breaks it down, you have to go and listen to it for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. The other thing that Duncan touched on was the ditch. The ditch, and we've spoken about this ditch a number of times as well. This ditch has now become extremely important. It's so weird because Duncan released a video yesterday about the ditch, and that whole entire day I was thinking about the ditch. I was just too tired and trying to recover from this illness to actually put the video together, but I was sitting there thinking about this ditch, thinking about why the ditch was so important. How would someone get themselves up from a ditch, continue walking into the ravine and then fall off a cliff? Or is the ditch that these guys are referring to the ditch that Jay would have been found in at the bottom of this cliff, which don't make any sense because we were told he instantly died from the fall. We also looked at the fact that Jay never used his arms or his legs to kind of break the fall. He just fell straight onto his head from 100+ feet up. But this ditch, ladies and gentlemen, where is this ditch? Just like Duncan said, like we've mentioned multiple times before, where is the ditch? And one of the questions that Duncan was asking in the video is, why was it so important to mention the ditch? What relevance does the ditch have to the story? Because when we think about where Jay was found, the ditch has no relevance. He wasn't found in a ditch. He was found at the bottom of a cliff. So how can people tell us that Jay was cut by a cactus lying in a ditch telling Lucy he was going to die, but that ditch hasn't been discovered? So what was the needs for the ditch part of the story? The reason why we kept saying Lucy mentioned the ditch is because Ayub told us that Lucy, the girl told him that Jay was lying in a ditch telling her he was going to die. The lady that leaked that audio said that Ayub sent her the voice notes 24 to 48 hours after Jay had gone missing. So whatever Ayub said in that audio to this lady, that is Ayub's original story. That is the fresh off the dome story that Ayub put together. He was ready to tell the world that story because he knew it was inevitable that he was going to get dragged into this. The reason he knew he was going to get dragged into this is because his name was on the Airbnb. To quickly digress, I'm actually starting to think that, you see the bank payments that were made from Jay's account that were declining, the 320 euros and 160 euros. Why do I feel like those payments? I feel like those payments were for the B&B. They were going to put the B&B in Jay's name. That's just something that just jumped into my mind at this moment in time. I think I'm going to do a bit more thinking around that because that is pretty interesting. But back to Ayub's audio and the story that he had. Remember, the lady said that Ayub had that conversation with her 24 to 48 hours after Jay had gone missing. Why at that point has Ayub got all this story patterned? Ayub's got the whole story all patterned at that point where Jay gave the key to his friend, told him later that he didn't have anywhere to stay. He said, oh, well, my gaff's a bit far away, bro. And the way he says it is like he was trying to fob Jay off by saying, oh, you know what, bro, my yard's a bit far away, you know, but don't worry, I'll give you the sofa. He assumed it and offered it to him straight away. And then he just casually says like he left and he tries to convince him not to go. And Jay says, no, he wants to leave, and Jay decides to leave, and then at 9 o'clock he gets a call, which he later says is the girl. So the only person he could get this call from is Lucy. It can't be anyone else, who basically says Jay is lying in a ditch, cut by a cactus, and he's telling her that he's going to die. Now, why would Ayub add that to his story 2 days after Jay had gone missing? See, at that point of the timeline, Lucy wouldn't have even spoken to the media at that point in terms of like hiding her face off camera. When Lucy hid her face off camera, that would have been after Ayub had this conversation. So how would Ayub know that he was cut by a cactus? But why would he add that he's lying in a ditch telling Lucy he's going to die? Why, like Duncan said, why was there a need to mention that? Especially when you think about where Jay was actually found. He was found on the bottom of a cliff. In my opinion, the reason why that was relevant is because Ayub was indirectly telling us that when we find Jay, he's going to be found dead. That's why he told us that. Lying in the ditch, telling the girl that he feels like he's going to die. The person who actually mentions the lying in a ditch, telling the girl that she's going to die is Ayub. But why would he add that to the story after 24 hours of Debbie receiving the disturbing message saying you're never going to see your son again because he owes me a lot of money? Same message that Ayub claims he stuck it on everyone for, asking everyone, oh, who sent that? What you man doing? It was too soon. It's funny because when I listened back to Lucy's interview, the narrator basically said the reason she's hiding her face was because of prank calls and abuse. So by the 19th, 20th of June, Lucy's doing media coverage and she's claiming at that point she doesn't want to show her face because of prank calls and abuse. This is where, ladies and gentlemen, Lucy is supporting the disturbing message that Debbie got sent, and they are now creating the trolls. And literally, they started the trolling. They needed the trolling because the trolling led to multiple distractions. The trolling led to conspiracies being created. They even created some of the conspiracies. They used Josh Forshaw to create conspiracies. The 2 knives, the Rolex watch, all conspiracies. Why? Because none of them can be verified. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, shows you that it was never genuine. Why would Lucy care about prank calls and abuse at that point? Her friend's missing in the mountains, and she doesn't want to show her face because of prank calls. Make it make sense, ladies and gentlemen. It was a bag of BS to hide. It gave them a reason to hide. This is the reason why they needed people like Chris Tenerife and Sluggy the Side Chick to come in and sort all of the mess out for them. Because it was a mess. It was a mess after 2 weeks. We know it was a mess. And I don't believe anyone was being prank called initially. I think they just used that off the back of the disturbing message that Debbie received, and it gave them a reason to hide. It gave them a reason to cower away and act like they're innocent. See, another thing I want to mention that correlates with what Duncan Smith was saying when he was talking about the 50-50 chances that Jay would have had going from the Papagayo nightclub to the Airbnb all the way to the mountain where he fell. Lucy told us that he's not a guy that takes risks. She said no, he wouldn't take any type of risks. He wouldn't take no risks. She also kept reiterating that Jay's not a stupid boy. He's not a stupid boy, which is so ironic because their narrative makes it look like Jay takes risks. Their narrative makes it look like Jay was a stupid boy. But that's her with Ayub and the rest of the gang playing mind games, because that's exactly what they've been doing. I was also sent something interesting in regards to Ramon and Juan Diaz. After I was sent this information, I've done a bit of digging myself, and I come to realize that Ramon Hernandez, he was blind in one eye. He's blind. I'm not too sure what he's doing on some sort of construction site. Juan Diaz, the sidekick, he's a taxi driver, ladies and gentlemen. The guy that told Jay there was no taxis in Masca is a taxi driver. Now, I'm sure you guys remember Peter Wyatt. He broke down Lucy's statement. He broke down Ayub's statement. And he basically said they're making this stuff up. They're hiding things. They're concealing information. They're making this stuff up. Unfortunately, he passed away a number of months ago. So RIP to Peter Wyatt. But there's something that he mentions in his video that I want to bring to your attention because it connects with what Duncan Smith was asking. What was the need for Ayub to mention lying in a ditch, telling Lucy he's going to die? Let's listen to what Peter's got to say here.
And the one you just mentioned, his quote was something else.
Yeah, let's move to him. So that is Ayub Qasim. He's one of the 2 men that Jay was said to have left the NRG festival with. He's a convicted drug dealer, as I say, from England. He was renting the Airbnb, we're told, for a very short period of time. And the quotes have happened, I think, as a consequence of British reporters approaching him. And there's several here. Which one would you like to start with? The only comment I have to make is that Jay came to the house alive and he left the house alive. How's that one?
Okay, so that's the one I focused in on, and that's the one that concerns me. And so I have it pulled up here with a commentary. And the only comment I have to make is that Jay came to the house alive and he left, and there's a departure, the house alive, not to where he was going, but that he left. Now, this saying about being alive, coming there alive, and leaving alive, he's telling you that he comes from a culture of criminality. And so what this means is that when one is well acclimated to crime, associating with criminals, his reference point in life is going to be very different than yours and mine. It's going to, in his world, people may not always be alive. In our world, they're always alive unless they get sick.
Right.
In his world, in the context of him with a defensive posture about where Jay is, he goes to life or death.
Exactly. He goes to life or death in a defensive posture. He's asked a question in a defensive posture. He goes to life or death. This is early on he's talking about. What you have to understand is why, ladies and gentlemen, because what Ayub has always been telling us is that when you find Jay, you're going to find him dead. I'm letting you know he come alive and he left alive, but ultimately you're going to find him dead when you do find him. Like, that is more or less what you're getting from it. It also takes us back to what Ayub said in the podcast with Cullen.
I can't say a 1,000,000% they're right or they're wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you can prove someone's fell and hit something, but what you can't prove what's happened prior to that. Do you know what I'm saying? But I don't want to make assumptions, say this happened or that happened, because the moment he said I'm going, bro, and said I'm off, and I shut my door, that's me out of this.
You can prove that someone's fell, but you can't prove what's happened prior to that. Another thing that I also want to mention is the sunglasses that we spoke about in the last video. I did say that we never got any verification on whether they belongs to Jay or not. A few people did get back to me, and Nick Pisser did actually mention it in an interview that the glasses that were found by Chris did not belong to Jay. Big up the guys that tagged me in that and sent that over to me via email. Much appreciate that. That was something that I hadn't seen or heard before. Ladies and gentlemen, what I need from you right now is to leave all of your thoughts and opinions all down below in the comment section. I need to know exactly what you are thinking right about now. Make sure you hit the like button, do subscribe to the channel if we are newly watching, turn your notification bells on so you don't miss out on future videos, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.